Gavin Price, welcome to the Game Informer Show, sir.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so we are very close to the release of Yooka-Laylee. How are you guys feeling at this point?
Well, we're all nervous wrecks. It's been a long 2 years. We've seemed to have done a lot in that time, but we're very excited to see the game finally get in a lot of people's hands beyond the Kickstarter backers as well. And I hope it gets into the hands of people beyond Kickstarter backers. Otherwise, we'll quickly be winning back to Kickstarter to those same guys.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned 2 years. This is the big takeaway for me looking at Yooka-Laylee, and it's weird to, from a distance, praise a game's production, but it seems like you guys, more than most other Kickstarter projects, it feels from the outside at least that it was a pretty smooth development, did not take too long, no big obstacles, no crazy huge disappointments for fans along the way. Does it feel that way on the inside as well?
I guess we're kind of pretty proud with how much we've got done, and we're seeing some game times coming in from some of the reviewers, and it seems to be like late 30 hours for some who are, pretty familiar with the platforming genre. So yeah, we're really chuffed to have built a bit of a beast of a game with an average of, I think, 15 people over 2 years. It's incredible. I think the key takeaway for us is there's got to be a positive to being old and experienced, and that's it. So we're no longer young anymore. We've no longer can get up out of bed in the morning without feeling our backs go, but we can actually we still know a bit about 3D platform development, thank goodness.
And are you still burning the midnight oil? Are you guys working reasonable schedules? Just everyone has the experience at this point just to crank this thing out pretty quickly?
We usually end up working beyond core office hours just because everyone wants to push and make the most of the time we've got. We've got a pretty rapid development structure. We're really open, and anyone can quickly jump in and try something, and we shut down stuff that isn't working pretty quick as well. So we've got a bit of a term called failing forwards fast, to find stuff that works best and concentrate and double down on that. We've not killed ourselves doing this, although some of us became fathers during this process, and that on top of making game dev means most of us are a lot grayer and plumper around the waist than we were at the start of the game. But I don't think any of us would have it any other way.
Yeah. Do you have any advice to other developers out there that are trying to tackle a big Kickstarter initiative? Big lessons you learned along the way that you think it's key to stress?
Yeah, don't promise to sign so much stuff. We spent a day signing 1,200 manuals, all of us, and there's probably a bit of a difference between the signatures at the start of the day and the signatures at the end of the day, where our hands have just like cramped into these awful pain-ridden claws. But yeah, that's definitely one of them. Be careful on what you promise physically, goods-wise. That's at the end of the day, we're just game devs. We just like to concentrate on what we know best, and having big shipping and logistics problems isn't. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Well, hey, are you sick of going back in time and talking about Rare overall?
No. We're really proud of our time there throughout the full career. Nintendo era and Microsoft era, we learned a lot, and I think Playtonic's kind of built on the best of both worlds of that experience, really. And for myself, I think I joined Rare and I was 19, so I was very I went in a very young, naive, didn't know anything about not just games or the industry or life at that point, and I guess I learned a lot about life and games whilst there, and I grew up as a person. So no, as a period of time, it's got a warm place in my heart.
So what percentage of your team has worked at Rare at some point in their lives?
Let me just have a quick look over the tops of the desks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd say about 85%-ish.
Oh,
roughly.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and even there's even people who haven't worked at Rare, have a fiance at Rare, for example, or friends at Rare. A friend of a friend got in touch when we were looking to fill a position. So there seems to be quite a lot of a Rare connection, even between the non-Rare team members. But I think we ended up with so many ex-Rare staff purely from a point of we knew what game we wanted to make, and people were passionate about making this game, and it helped build a team when people you've worked with in the past you can trust and just get them in without having to go through a long hiring process. And that's another thing that helped us get the game done so quick, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're 19 years old and you start at Rare, what's your first day on the job like? What really stood out to you?
the very, very first thing is when you you've had your allocated car park space and it's quite far away from the front of the building, unlike people who've been there a while. And as you walked up the car park, it was unbelievable. You just looked over and the cars just got better and better and better until right near the front door you're walking past Ferraris and Lamborghinis and you thought, wow, this place is fantastic. And it was just a wonderful, magical place. It was kind of like 6 or 7 mini companies in one. The way the teams operated back then, though, very much secretive and hidden away from each other. It was bizarre but wonderful, and for me, it felt like a story Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, going in and seeing what was going on the inside for the place that you've dreamt about wanting to know all those years.
Yeah. So which silo were you put in then? What was your first project there?
First of all, I got in at testing QA. I did a good year and a bit of testing, so it was on Jet Force Gemini.
Oh, wow.
And I seemed to join at a point in time when I don't think Rare kind of planned as a business we should spread our releases out like a normal company would. They just always said when the game is great and ready, it goes out. And so I joined. I tested Jet Force Gemini, then Donkey Kong 64, then Perfect Dark, all within the space of I think 5 months. I probably didn't see any friends or family for that time. We really did put a lot of hours in, but it was such an exciting time, such a privilege to be there. It was amazing. In the end, it was after that period, I guess I moved on and became a designer, joined the Banjo team.
Oh, wow. Okay. So going back a little bit, with QA, multiplayer, and Perfect Dark, how broken was the game when you first started testing it, or was it fun out of the gate? What were those sessions like the earliest multiplayer QA?
Yeah, it was in a pretty good state, to be honest. But it was testament to the game that when you were testing it, you forgot you were testing it, and you just took it way too seriously and tried to win and beat everything. And especially because we all had our faces put in, and it was like, yeah, I want to shoot him. Look, there he is. No, it was great fun. Yeah, I always remember being affected by the slow-mo multiplayer challenges when you had to play a challenge in slow motion. When you started driving home after playing a game in slow-mo all day, you kind of felt the effects that still, which was kind of dangerous when you're behind the wheel of a car.
Yeah.
That you think the world's in slow-mo, but no, it was lots of fun. Lots of fun.
I feel like everybody who played Perfect Dark multiplayer, especially with 4 players, was a little bit of a tester in their own way, because I feel like everyone's like, well, I'm just going to line this building with remote mines, detonate it. Let's see how low this frame rate can drop. How much did you test it back in the day on that front? How much did you try and break it? Do you remember doing anything crazy to try and break that game?
Yeah. It became a game in itself. Let's see who can break the game. And we always, on every game, not just Perfect Dark, it was always really fun to see who could get a real big reaction from the developers of like, oh no, how on earth has this guy done this, or oh what? And I remember certain bugs that you could keep repeating over time really affected the game. I remember on Jet Force Gemini, for example, on the swamp level, there was a waterfall in the game. I thought, this is fantastic. And waterfalls on the N64 back then were not really seen that often. And they'd particularly done this really cool one. But I could walk off the waterfall and get the camera in such a position to look through the different layers of transparency, and it would just crash the N64 every time. And for weeks, I remember one of the lead designers on that project saying, I fixed that bug. You're not going to do it this time, Gavin. You're not going to. And I did. And he said one week, he said, you're not going to do it this time. And I walked into level and there was no waterfall there at all. And I thought, oh no, I've made the game worse, but the bug isn't there. I felt really bad about that.
And it shipped without a waterfall then?
Yeah. The waterfall got taken out. Yeah, and in the end, there's just this little paddling ramp of water going down to a pool where the camera can't get stuck in behind it or anything. I always felt a bit guilty about that. But hey, he fixed the bug and the game went out.
Yeah, I guess so. So what was the biggest quirk for developing for the Nintendo 64 back in the day?
Oh, the biggest quirk. I guess for the period I was there, they were trying to push the expansion pack at the time as well, yeah. And it was like trying to figure out what could run with and without it. So we had to test quite a few of the games with different configurations. We were also trying to push the kind of the hot swapping aspect between Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. And I remember even Donkey Kong 64 internally, it once got to the point where you could get the ice key out of Banjo-Kazooie and trigger something happening in Donkey Kong 64 as well. And I think one of the testers has legitimately got rid of the ice key in his Banjo-Kazooie cartridge in a way that never saw release. So if I could hunt down him, I would steal his copy of that game. It must be
Interesting.
worth something now.
Wait,
But
can you explain that a little more? I don't understand what that is.
yeah, so on Donkey Kong 64 on the test version, it would see if it could read the ice key from Banjo-Kazooie, and we had to test it at one point. And so the tester put in his copy of DK64 after hot swapping it quickly from Banjo, and sure enough, the ice key appeared in DK64 from his Banjo save game, and he used it in DK64 and triggered something cool. And he was like, wow, it works. This hot swapping works. And then, unfortunately, as we all know, it kind of got vetoed, I think, by Nintendo at some point because they didn't quite like the idea of people having to rush to pull out cartridges and ram another cartridge in the machine.
Right.
But we tested it at some point, and it really did work.
So what would it do in the game then? I don't understand. Just let you get into a secret area that was designed, or just shatter the game in a strange way?
No, as I remember, there was I think in DK64 there was just going to be an extra gold banana, so you could get a higher total than anyone else in an area locked away behind a door requiring the ice key.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think Banjo-Tooie had grander plans for the hot swap mechanic.
Yeah. Was that expansion pack for the N64 divisive? Do you remember a lot of debate amongst developers about having to make two different versions of the game? And does it remind you at all of the new era of the, Project Scorpio and PS4 Pro?
I think it was probably from the developers. Everyone was just excited to have more power. Probably the similar with modern day consoles. Everyone's like, "Yay, we can do more stuff." It's more of a quandary, I guess, for the business people to say, "Well, that sounds great, but we don't want to create a divided market for ourselves." So I'm on the developer side. I was like, "Yeah, this is great. This is cool fun." The problems for the business guys, yeah, they should have been developers.
So when you started on Banjo-Kazooie, then how much research did you do into the genre? Was it just you guys had a great base knowledge of making platformers in general, or was it a situation where you all went and just sat down with Mario 64 and played it again and again to dissect everything about it before you started on Banjo?
So myself, I joined the Banjo team right at the end of Tooie, so I
Oh,
kind
okay.
of missed the original group, but I grilled them long over this. And I remember at the time Mario 64 was a big influence for them. They were going down a different route with a non-Banjo game at some point called Project Dream.
Right.
And then when they saw Mario 64, they were just like blown away by it and what it was doing, and they thought, "All right, we've got to do that." And I know the fact that they were inspired by Mario 64 took Banjo, especially with textures, to the next level. I think that kind of influenced Zelda Ocarina of Time, because I think Nintendo saw the results we were getting with Banjo, and they went back and started redrawing a lot of Zelda based off what they'd seen Banjo-Kazooie, which I think is pretty cool. I'm not sure if that's massively well known. But then Banjo-Tooie, the team just really wanted to expand on everything before. And I think at that point in time, bigger will always seem to be better for sequels. I think people don't really think like that anymore. But at the time, it was definitely make Banjo-Tooie a bigger game, open up the hub world, and have this really large adventurous area. I remember that being a thing.
Yeah. How would you define the difference in Rare's style of 3D platformers versus Nintendo's? Was it an overall British sensibility or just a cultural sensibility within Rare that was pushing things in a different direction?
I think it was. I think at Rare, every game they ever made was kind of the DNA of the people behind it. You literally saw their thoughts, humor, and creativity just pushed straight up on screen. There was never any barrier or green light process or anything getting in the way to stop people doing that. So it was a really nice, true reflection of the people at the time, their sense of humor, their take on the world. And I think, more so than Mario, which kind of had a settled design ethos to achieve and take what people loved about him in 2D into 3D. Whereas for people at Rare, it was more of a case of, right, we can think about this from the ground up for ourselves and create characters and worlds that fit what we want to do ground up without no pre-existing rules. I think that's what made it really exciting for the teams back then, that they were just left and with all that trust to get on and do whatever they want. And as long as it became quality, it got released.
Yeah. So that's the Japanese and British side of things. What did you think about what the Americans were doing at the time? Did you guys look at Crash and Spyro? What was Rare's views on those platformers in that era?
I don't think we did much looking over the fence at neighbours at all. One of the things Tim and Chris Stamper, I think, were actually, I think it came from them. They're actually big advocates of not, I wouldn't say not caring what anyone else is up to, but not being channeled into thinking like anything what you may have seen elsewhere, to retain your uniqueness and your own perspective on things of how things were going. So there wasn't so much looking around and checking what everyone else was doing at all going on.
Yeah. So what were the best bits of Rare's culture that you tried to bring forward with the new company now?
I think it's like develop a team where there's no design doc to follow. If you've got something to say, it's a conversation that occurs, and anyone who within earshot can be part of that conversation. We don't try and define exactly every element of the game 2 years before release. We say, hey, first thing we have to concentrate on is getting this element nailed, which is normally character control and move set and the feel, and then we build all other components out from that, so it all feels aligned, and everything that follows was built to the spec of the core fun that the game originally had. We just have a way of trusting each other as well. So, character guys, when they do a character and are passionate about it, I don't go over that. I wouldn't dare go up to anyone like Mark Stevenson, Kev Bayliss, or Steve Mayles and say, "Well, that character looks rubbish." They're the guys who decide, what they're doing looks great and fantastic. And
Snake wearing pants. Yeah. Well, I never. This is outrageous.
yeah, all that kind of stuff. You can just trust them. Same with like the musicians, Grant. Although I do like to send Grant some fake feedback from Steve Mayles just to wind him up every now and again, and that's hilarious because he goes straight back and he starts insulting Steve and all his characters, and he has all this built-up progression for whatever Steve's been doing, but that's just more like playing a game during development.
Sure. So without design docs, I don't understand how that can't lead to confusion. Is it just daily meetings over and over again? Is the office just so small that everyone knows what everybody else is up to?
Yeah, I mean, we have a tiny office. We could just go and sit down, and it's kind of like we always cross a bridge when we need to cross it, and everyone just gathers, agrees on what we're doing to move it forward, and then everyone goes away and gets it done. It's really liberating early on. I think if you were designing everything all up, when you get to some kind of ad hoc opportunities that could crop up during development, you're not in a position to take advantage of them because you've already said, actually, we've got the next 18 months all defined already. There's no room to schedule it in. And we're kind of like not anti-schedule, but we're kind of like would rather creativity define the design process, not fitting a schedule or getting stuff nailed down early. And honestly, I don't think I've ever written a design doc in my life where everyone actually ended up reading it. People just come over for conversations, and they normally bring new ideas and fresh perspectives with it too. So yeah, it's just a better fit for us. And hopefully, if everyone loves Yooka-Laylee, for example, it's kind of validates that approach for us.
Yeah, for sure. So when you guys are setting out to design a modern 3D platformer, but heavily inspired by the N64 era, how do you balance that fine line between modern conveniences versus having that throwback feel? What was the tipping point? What were the discussions where you're like, that's convenient, but I don't think that's what nostalgic fans want?
Yeah, there's certain things like tonally regards the game. We think, all right, that's still a good fit for us. I love the gibberish speak, for example. I think it's great. I think it's like reading a book. You can inject, as the end user, some of your own thoughts into what a character is and how they might sound like and react in certain situations, because you haven't just given the player the complete answer by giving them voice acting and mo-captured animations.
So you're saying when you're reading a book, you'd prefer to hear that Rare speak the entire time as well? Just throughout all of Moby Dick, just the entire thing going.
Yeah,
I understand.
that'd be great, right? And then we went back and played a lot of our own back catalogue and stuff. And we just kind of saw what elements are still important, what feel right. And then I guess just as being gamers ourselves across any genre, we kind of understood there's these things going on that's not necessarily just limited to platformers that people seem to really love and appreciate these days. And we should take the best of both worlds basically and bring it together. Things like we made this game a lot less linear than it was before. Players can take things at their own pace. A difficulty curve which is a lot more friendly for people, but it's still got a lot of challenge in there too. That players, it's all placed off the beaten track, which will mean naturally the more skillful players will go and find that stuff.
Yeah.
We're trying to. Okay, go for it.
Oh yeah, I'm just wondering what were some of the things like I think a lot of the Double Fine Adventure documentary. I don't know if you've seen that, but when Double Fine was trying to make a modern adventure game, there were so many discussions and debates about like what was fun about puzzles. Were those always a pain in the ass? What were the biggest elements of 3D platformers back in the day that you think have not aged well, that you're trying to downplay while still maybe having there in some spirit?
Yeah, I think it's all for me, it's the difficulty curve and the whole notion of, someone's paid their money. If you literally cannot get past a challenge in the game, you're not going to be able to do that. And we always thought this time around, more people should be able to play through the game and complete it. And this stuff, there is going to be players who want these really difficult challenges. We've got them in there too. And there's rewards for doing that. But we should embrace the fact that people want to buy your game and enjoy it and should see as much of it as possible without having any buyer's remorse. So that's a big thing for me. And also we've delinearized the game a bit as well, with the way people can buy moves in certain orders, choose to expand levels in different ways and progress through the game and see different things before other people in different orders. We think it makes the whole game more replayable, and people will see and find more content on their own terms, really. And hopefully that's something they appreciate, that goes in, and we're not forcing them to do things how a designer likes to set something up in an evil way and catch every player out. And we're watching the videos on YouTube ourselves, laughing at someone buying all the time at a certain point, thinking, yes, job done. There's hopefully a bit less of that this time around.
Yeah, for sure. What were the biggest questions that the team had during development where you're like, God, I don't know if fans want this or they want this? What were those big debates along the way?
I guess the common things we saw cropping up on forums all the time was level size, and so that's pretty much one of the key drivers behind level expansion mechanic we had. We knew some players loved the more smaller focus levels of Kazooie, and we knew just as many players equally loved the more expansive worlds of Tooie and the bigger navigational challenges they presented just by naturally being larger. So we came up with the worlds, why don't we start the worlds off small, and then as and when players feel like they've got the lay of the land and are comfortable with that, they can expand the world. And if a Tooie fan wants to expand the world early on, to them they're creating a big, huge world just like they like. And a Kazooie fan, they can start the game off smaller. And then when they want to, they can expand the world, and it'll feel like getting a second, smaller version of that level. So it was great to hear fans discuss things like that, because it gave us creative challenges to fix things. And so was the picking up of pages. We knew in Kazooie, some fans loved the happy little dance that Banjo did when he collected a Jiggy, and on Tooie, that was removed, and so you could just collect a Jiggy and carry straight on, and the Jiggy just end up spinning around the character, so there was no pause in gameplay. And again, that seemed to divide fans pretty much 50-50. So into this game, we put an emote system in, so when you collect a pagey, you can stop, you can trigger a dance or a happy emote for Yooka-Laylee if that's what you want, and if you don't have to. You can just carry on and do as you were, or speedrun the game.
Nice. How what was the roller coaster of confidence throughout this game's project, or the entire project overall? When you started out, I imagine you felt really good getting all those fans rallied. Was there a valley of despair at any point in this game's path?
I don't think so. I think after so long not making a game like this, we were all just so happy and enthusiastic to be doing this, and that just kept driving us forward. That gave us tons of energy. We had all this pent-up passion and creativity for this type of game that in a way it's kind of sad to end it, but in a good way. There's sequel potential there, I guess, already within the office, that we're thinking about. So yeah, no, it was a real positive, happy development period.
This is, and I was just playing it recently, and my big takeaway is it must be so bizarre because you were in your early 20s working on these types of games back at Rare, and the audience was all ages, right? But I'd imagine there's so many people that are so nostalgic about these 3D platformers when they played it when they were like around 10. And there's just something so sweet, but also bizarre about like, yeah, we were in our 20s making this game that we're really nostalgic for. You guys were, 10 and under playing it, and you were really nostalgic for it. Do you feel like you have the same love and the same appreciation for these games, or do you appreciate it more technically and they appreciate it more emotionally?
That's a good question. I guess never really thought of it like that. Um, for us, even as we've got older, um, I think we have come to appreciate making this type of game more, having been on the journey we've been through, and spending time away from making games like this and the way we made games like this as well. But coming back to it, it has felt just so much fun. We don't really grow up very fast anyway in this industry. Most of us, we're still big kids at heart. We'd like to still think we were younger and fresher than we were. Unfortunately, we're not. But mentally, I guess you kind of do feel it. It hit us hard actually, and it was only near the end of the game when someone said, "You know what? All of us 3D platformers are now retro." Like this is seen as bringing back a retro game in many people's eyes, and we're like, wow, when did 3D become retro? And it kind of, that fact, yeah, hit us, and we're like, yeah, well, think about it. It's 15, 20 years since games like Mario 64 and Banjos and Donkey Kong 64s, things like that. But we don't. It's never really felt retro at all in terms of any point in time throughout Yooka's development. We never really felt like we were making a retro remake. We always felt like this is the game we'd actually have been making by this point in time if we'd have carried on, and this is the kind of things we'd be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that you're at the end of the game's development, the end of the long road, is there any way, or are there any discussions about you guys playing the game then thinking, this is as good as Banjo-Tooie, if not better? Like, is there any frame of comparison in your mind for what you guys have actually made here?
You know what? No, I think we're the worst self-critics. Myself and quite a few others, I think we're always striving perfection, and a few of us can't see anything good about the game at all. We just see the imperfections, and we're thinking, oh, I wanted more time to sort that out, or change that, or do that. And this time during development, it goes so fast. We're not really massively reflective of the game as a whole from start to finish. We're just looking for the next thing that happens with it. Yeah, that's now you've got me thinking of it live as well. I'm thinking, hang on, should we be more like that? But no, we've always had kind of confidence in each other and what we're doing is right. And when we did the toy box, we got a huge wave of positivity from that as well, and people playing the game at shows. So I guess the most important thing for us was not to have it compared to games in the past, but to make sure we were delivering on our promises to our Kickstarter backers, where we said, this game is going to be like this. I think it was important that they saw the campaign, and the end result was exactly what was promised. That was probably on our minds quite a lot.
It seems like, yeah, you guys have pulled it off and are in that upper tier of Kickstarters fulfilling basically exactly what fans were hoping for. There's so many disaster stories along the way. So congratulations on actually, in theory, delivering to fans exactly what they want, man.
Oh, cheers, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Kickstarter. I've backed quite a few projects myself, even before we started Playtonic up. And I always knew, I kind of guessed what I appreciated from the companies that were delivering the projects I'd backed. That I understood the process from the mindset of a backer. So I think that helped a bit as well. But yeah, fingers crossed every single backer is a happy backer come April the 11th.
Yeah, for sure. So what does the future look like for you guys? You mentioned the team is excited about a sequel. You guys aren't burned out on Yooka-Laylee at this point?
No, no. You know what? We've not decided a single thing as of yet, and I think there's still a bit of love we want to show for Yuka as well. I think gone are the days when a game comes out and you kind of forget about it. I think there's always chance to put a few nice little surprises in there and a few little delightful moments still within Yuka. And then for us, yeah, we better get our thinking caps on quickly and decide what we want to do next. We've always said we want to build this Playtonic universe and have different games in different genres. So we've got to see how that all fits together. We've got with the storyline in Yooka-Laylee is really the start of this wider good versus evil story that's going to occur through the Playtonic universe. And if you've played Yuka already, you'll be familiar with one of these elements that has kind of a bit of power over the universe. And
hang on a second, Playtonic universe? Can you explain this? I don't understand.
Yeah. So every game we do is actually going to be in the same universe. All the characters that you meet, even NPCs in Yooka-Laylee, some of them are lined up to star in their own games in future. They're not necessarily always going to get on, and who's good, who's bad might not be quite so clear cut. But yeah, and there's this going to be longer meta narrative story going across all games for people to follow, as well as hopefully good stories in the games themselves with good starts and ends to them.
Is this based partly on like Banjo appearing in Diddy Kong Racing, or is it more just like, yeah, that's the universe now? Everyone like Marvel, DC, you have to build up this larger shared experience.
Yeah, so for us, it's the shared experience Marvel kind of approach, but it's born from this creative passion that we always wanted and thought, looking back at all the games Rare did in the past, we kind of thought it's a shame, missed opportunity that they weren't meeting up with each other in future and discussing different things happening across each other's games, as well as creating some fantastic multiplayer large roster games that there's lots of different games out there which bring a lot of characters together, and you can see them all fighting each other in different scenarios. So we've got our hopes to do games like that in future as well.
Yeah. So compare your love for 3D platformers of yesteryear versus 3D shooters like Perfect Dark. Is that just the gritty side of Rare and you don't have as much love for it, or are those about equal in your mind?
Oh, we're trying to make me choose children here.
I need you to choose those children.
So I as a gamer, I've always been defined by the SNES era myself, and I remember back then I didn't even think of games as being different genres. I just thought, this is a great game and I'm doing this, and in another great game I'm mechanically doing something different. So that's the way I kind of think as a gamer. So I'm not blindly in love with a single genre more than the other. I just love great fun content, and I guess that's what's going to help us guide us going forwards with what we do. But the way we're creating this universe and the roots we're putting in place don't necessarily present us going into different art styles and different tones in different genres if we wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, with Time Splitters kind of falling by the wayside, it certainly feels like there is a market out there that's hungry for that nostalgic shooter experience, console shooter experience, I should say.
Yeah. I'd be surprised how often we get requests by people. Now we've been doing a 3D adventure platformer revival. I think we're getting a name for ourselves as the company to go and ask to do someone else's franchise and IP and revive that all the time as well. We get that quite a lot. And honestly, I think we'll be focused and concentrating on our own brand new IPs. But I think there's a lot of missed opportunities out there for a lot of IP holders to, if they're not listening to what their fans are saying of those games, then maybe other developers will and help deliver those experiences.
Yeah, well, it's exciting to hear you guys are looking into other genres as well. I think fans are going to be intrigued by that.
Yeah, I hope so. Like I say, we want to test ourselves in many different genres. I can't say more. I'm notorious. I'll just put the cat out of the bag, but I'll shut up there.
All right, that's fair. Well, hey, congratulations again on nearing the finish line for Yooka-Laylee, man. Congratulations to the team.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can click right here if you want to subscribe and listen to the audio version of the full show. Full episodes air every Thursday, and they feature Game Informer editors sitting around talking about the biggest reviews, previews. We talk about exclusive impressions of Game Informer's cover stories. We have long-form developer interviews, everything that's great in gaming. So every Thursday, be sure to check it out.